When we think of sexual trauma, we tend to think of the obvious ones: abuse, molestation, assault, violation. But sexual trauma, by definition, is anything that involves overwhelm to a sexual organ, to sexual expression, to the body. Here are the less obvious ones, but absolutely impact the level of sex, pleasure, relationship, and surrender that you will have in your life. There's shame for the type of sexuality that expresses through you. Having any kind of religious shame or any type of repression. Being exposed to pornography at a young age. Having experiences of sexual fawning, where you're doing something that someone else wants to do. And it's not because they're a bad person, because that's something that you've been playing out that is actually layered to another kind of relational trauma that you end up doing in your sex, because you end up using or identifying that your body is an avenue for a sense of connection, a sense of belonging. So sexual fawning, because you're going along with something that you don't actually want to do, and sometimes it's even hard to identify that you don't want to do it because the intensity of the connection happening through it overrides you being able to actually feel what is here for you. Not being educated about your body or your sexuality, but seeing TV shows that are depicting how you should be socializing in your body, how you should be interacting in the world, engaging in social cues that then later down the line lead to certain kinds of touching that feel confusing because it's along the same line of how you're behaving, and it becomes confusing and contorted. Receiving messages around how your body is a currency for someone else to enjoy, or that it is an avenue for you to gain a sense of love and connection. If you were bullied a lot when you were younger, but then you started to develop in adolescence and you were receiving all this attention, we are hardwired to want to belong in our social circles. And so there can be a confusion in and around the body and the way that the body looks as a way of an exchange or interaction. Not being taught about pleasure in your body or pleasure anatomy, and only experiencing your body and your genitals in a hyper medicalized way, where there's this sense of that it's always a problem to be solved. Making fun of how certain genitals look in a locker room or change room and identifying that you have a similar look to that is a form of sexual trauma. Not being taught about menses or menstruation and not having a rite of passage. Not having a rite of passage through puberty, regardless of the body that you have, a form of sexual trauma. There is so much happening in the body, and if you're not being guided to it, it is incredibly confusing, and all of the confusing and the adrenaline and the fear is getting wired into the sexual pleasure belonging system. Hiding your sexual orientation to avoid tack or to avoid losing out on social engagement. Faking big O's is a form of sexual trauma, and it is also a symptom of sexual trauma. Having erectile dysfunction is a symptom of sexual trauma. Really, the list goes on and on, because when these things happen, our brain at that time does not have the capacity to intellectualize what's going on. So it's experiencing something that's happening in the body, a level of intensity, and then that is getting associated with it. It's called an overcoupling. And then the overcoupling lasts through the years and through the decades. I understand that trauma is an intimidating word, but all that trauma means is that there was overwhelm at the time of the event where there wasn't enough space, time, co-regulation, and or support to metabolize what was going on. When we are developing, any exposure to sexuality at a young age will be overwhelming. Our brains cannot comprehend very adult situations, even if we're seeing it in a movie scene or something like this. And here's the other thing: no one chooses our sexual trauma. It's something that happens to us. It happens to the body, in the situation, watching the movie, experiencing the tonal inflections that are happening with the adults in relation to sexuality or to love or to connection. And it ultimately will impact the way and the avenue that the body will unfurl in pleasure, in sensation, in belonging or not. The other nuance here is that our pleasure centers are inherently connected to our connection and our belonging centers. So if we are experiencing pleasure at a young age, like it just happens, at the same time that that was happening, there was an emotional resonance of disgust or fear, shame, guilt, or even just adrenaline, because there was an intensity going on. There was fear around that, secrecy even. That gets wired into the pleasure and the belonging centers. And over time, it can actually disguise itself as needing to seek out intense situations to try to complete this stress cycle. Also good to note that trauma is not the event. It's how the body responds to the event. You may not have experienced direct molestation or direct abuse or attack, but what happened to your body, how your body responded when you watched that movie, or you were reading that comic book, or you saw that Disney movie, or you saw the teens around you responding in a certain way, or the type of attention you were receiving or not receiving as you were in puberty. Whatever was happening, there was not enough time, space, or co-regulation to be able to metabolize what was happening. And another good thing to note is that the event itself is way less important than the decades of overcoupling and the repeating of the same pattern over and over again. The years of unmetabolized charge from that event that has been shaping your life. And that's why in somatic experiencing, it's actually way less important to understand the origin of it. It can happen, you can understand it, but you don't actually need to know the exact time that it happened. You don't actually have to go back and heal the thing. The thing is actually right here, right now, in you, right here, right now. It's in your body, and it's been spending time being redeveloped over and over. That neural circuit has been processed. So it's not just that moment, it's the endless moments of recreating the same and playing out the same neural path and circuit. So it actually doesn't matter to know when the event is, and you don't need to know of a particular kind of event to be able to validate your experience. The validation comes in when you are approaching SMEX, big O, wanting a solid, secure relationship, connection, intimacy, surrender, pleasure. If there are things that are in the way of that, and you feel them in your body, or they're coming in the form of a thought or a sensation or an impulse that is stopping you from going all the way or experiencing that, there's something that's associated. It's called an overcoupling, and it just needs to be unwound and then reordered in the direction that you want to have. And so if any of this is speaking to you, reach out, book a call with me. It's exactly the work that I do. I do erotic repatterning system that I've designed, and I work through a somatic lens and also understanding holistic sexuality and sacred sexuality, and really giving people the guideline. Because here's the thing, we have not been taught about our sexuality. There is not a roadmap given to us. It's more been hyper-medicalized. It's a problem to be solved. And so I'm here to make this real for people so that you can enjoy the pleasures and the joy and the gorgeousness of having that for yourself and also with your beloved.